over. Try this again. All right. Do you see the screen? Nod yes. Am I sharing my screen?
No, not yet.
Okay, hold on. Thank you. I just needed that confirmation. Share screen. Share screen. There we go.
There you go.
Thank you. From the beginning. All right, you see that now? All right. So welcome, everybody. CERT week, like I mentioned. And we have been active. Like I said, one of the few organizations, CERT organizations, that has been active in the past 6 months. So let's take a look at some of the things we've done. For the recent lightning fires, after that spectacular lightning show that we had that then caused all kinds of grief throughout the state, we did have a lightning fire here in San Mateo and Santa Cruz counties. So we were requested to assist at an evacuation center set up at the San Mateo Event Center, the fairgrounds. There wasn't a lot of activity. There were very few evacuees that came all the way to San Mateo, which is good news, because that meant that they had what they needed closer to home. So in some senses, it was a little boring, but the folks who went, I have to say, the CERTs who went really did an outstanding job really finding ways to be helpful. I know one of them became sort of the IT for everybody else there and made sure the printers were going and everything was going. One of the evacuees who did come was not prepared, had a pet cat, and went out at midnight and brought back kitty litter and a litter box. It's like, you guys are great. You guys are so awesome and so thoughtful. We also did the Carlmont High School graduation parade, another request. And remember, we get these requests from different agencies. The fire chief looks at it, approves it. We set up the protocol, and then we do an activation, a call out of some sort, whether it be via email, SMC alert, or whatever. So make sure to know that activations can come in different forms, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. One of the other events that we did, this is also the graduation, essentially making sure everybody was safe and knew where they were going, kept everybody in line, and it was awesome. It was really, really great. This was probably the biggest event that we did, because it was over the course of 10 weeks. At the very beginning of the sheltering in place, when a lot of our seniors couldn't leave their home, we had 30 CERTs who were delivering 200 hot lunches every weekday to neighbors who were sheltering in place. So really, really outstanding job. The city of San Mateo and the senior center really, really they're very appreciative, and they were ecstatic at how well that worked out. We also got a nice little blurb in the paper. Thank you for that. We also did some donations management. There was a nice big donation that came in from Gilead, and we had to unload it and store it, and a lot of the CERTs came out and helped with that. So that was a huge assistance. There was also assistance with hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer came in a big bat of, big bucket, if you will, and you can't really pass out a big bucket. So several of the CERTs came and assembled them into individual containers, and that was what was used to be passed out to our first responders and healthcare workers and that sort of thing. So that was huge. The State Social Bridging Project, this is a call center, if you will, organized by Cal OES and the Listos California program. So a couple of our CERTs have volunteered to work on that. And these are calls, wellness calls in some cases, and disaster prep calls in other cases, to people who may live in wildfire prone areas and that sort of thing, to be sure that they are prepared. This was yesterday. We did not activate CERT for this. This is the Belmont fire. It went to 4 alarms. People were evacuated. I know that some of our CERTs may have been affected. I hope you're all safe and well. We had a very quick response, including from CAL FIRE, with some water drops, and it was contained quickly, and no shelters, no homes were affected directly, but people were evacuated, and an evacuation center was open, but we did not have to evacuate. We didn't have to activate CERT. Some of you may know, half of my job is CERT, and half of my job is OES, Office of Emergency Services, for San Mateo Consolidated Fire. So the routine is when there's a fire of 2 alarms or more, OES is called out for support. And so I was called out and I had the very glamorous job of, whoops, where'd it go? There we go. I had the porta potty. This is a very important job. And everybody that I saw was happy to see me. So there, so I had to get the porta potty up to as close to the fire line as I could do safely and find a flat spot to park the porta potty. So that was good. But whether it's bring water or set up an evacuation center or whatever, that's things that OES assists with as well. So that was part of the duties yesterday. We're on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, please follow us at SMCFD CERT. And we're getting that rolling. It's CERT week, so I'm trying to tweet at least one thing every day. So look out for that. And that is, I think, everything that I had. So let me stop sharing. Make sure I've got everybody still here. Great. All right, and so the next thing I need to do is I need to take roll, right? At every CERT event, what do? We sign in and we sign out. You won't be signing out tonight, but you will be signing in. So what I would like very neatly and quickly, just first and last name in the chat room. That would be very helpful to me, and that way I can give you credit for being at this training. So first and last name into the chat room, please. All the people typing away, very nice. So to keep myself honest while you're doing that, here's a little sticky note that I placed before the meeting with a number. So based on the chat room, later I'll go back and count because I can't do it now. You all know that we have a new CERT store, right? Hold on. So one of our CERT members, Matt Schultz, ordered a few items. And apparently they run a little on the larger side. So he ordered a large, and it's a bit big for him. So he very generously donated a couple of items. This is the polo, size large. So this will be given to one of our CERT members, whoever signed in as number 16. 16. So I will be notifying number 16. You'll be getting one of our new polos. So thank you to Matthew. And thank you guys for all signing in. Okay, so before we get started, one thing I did want to remind everybody, because it came up yesterday while I was driving the very important porta potty to the fire line, was that someone was helping out at one of the corners, all dressed in CERT gear. I'm not calling them out, I'm just saying they were there. And I appreciate that there's enthusiasm. But remember that we have an activation protocol, and it's there for your safety. And if you lived near the fire, you were likely, possibly, needing to be evacuated or in some other way taking care of business at home. Remember that any activation at any point, first thing, are you okay? Is your family okay and your home okay? Your neighborhood okay? Once all those criteria are met, then you can activate, but only after we've officially notified you. So everyone should be familiar with our activation procedure. We do not self-activate. What is self-activate? You decide to go out in your CERT gear and help, okay? We do not self-activate for your safety because we need to know whether we have CERT people in the field or not. And we have to know who they are so we can take care of them. Make sure you're in a safe place and that you have a mission. So please don't self-activate. Please be familiar with our activation procedure. It is in the new, or revised, I should say, SOP. The SOP, Standard Operating Procedure, was revised because we have become San Mateo Consolidated Fire, so that needed to be reflected in our SOP, okay? All of you should have it. It was in the last couple of newsletters, the CERT News, so please look for it there. Also, thank you to many, many of you who have already turned in the signature page of the SOP, which is page 9. If you haven't done so, please send it in as soon as possible. We need to get those in. That tells us who's active and who's prepared and who's ready to go, and make sure you're familiar with things like the activation procedure. So we're here tonight to learn about urban search and rescue. And we have one of our CERT members who's become a subject matter expert in this area, who's had a lot of experiences in different deployments. Cindy Birch, who volunteers for practically every organization I can think of, and has been very active before COVID-19, but certainly during COVID-19 in different things. And one of the things she's collected a lot of her experiences, and we are the beneficiaries of that. So if you have questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat box. I'll be facilitating that. But for right now, Cindy, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, please do so and unmute yourself. And I'll mute myself and we'll get rolling. Okay? It's great to see you all.
There we go. And meeting helps. All right. All right. Hopefully my screen's sharing now.
Yes, you're good.
Great. Thank you for the introduction. Let's
You bet.
jump into it. So why are we discussing this tonight? CERT has helped with urban searches and canvassing, so I want to make sure more of our team is familiar with it. CERT is a great asset to the area because we're a really good force multiplier. In the Paul Farmer search that we did in 2019, we had 24 CERT members show up, which really helped add to the numbers of people looking. And we're usually assisting a lead agency, although not always, because on our COVID-19 canvassing this weekend, CERT was helping the city of San Mateo, but we were there by ourselves. And then another thing to note is first responders are close by. We don't expect you to become experts, but it's kind of nice to know what's going on and what would be expected of you. Also want to explain why you might have an assignment. So otherwise you might feel like, oh, I got this assignment and I'm not being useful, but it turns out you probably are being useful. So it's nice to know the background of it. And at the very end, we'll talk about people with Alzheimer's. That's one of the cases that has frequent walkaways and some of the searches that we've done and some different characteristics of searches like that. So for those of you that don't know me or don't know this side of me, I spent 5 years at Placer County Search and Rescue. These pictures are not what we're being trained to do. It's part of the mountain rescue team, which is the high angle cliff rescue and snow and ice rescue, as well as being a ground searcher, and did 31 searches in the 5 years I was part of that team. This is up in it went from like Auburn to Lake Tahoe. So it was a wide range of habitat. So here's another picture from this weekend. We're a force multiplier. But first, there's some discussion about what is urban search and rescue. So in CERT, in the main course, we learn about light search and rescue, where we're doing the greatest good for the shortest amount of time for people. So we know what that is. In the next couple of slides, we'll talk about what the CERT team has done for urban search and rescue so far. There's also wilderness search teams, which is run by the Sheriff's Department in our area. This is a volunteer team, but sponsored by law enforcement most of the time. And they search in both rural and wilderness areas. So a lot of times we're supporting this search team in their searches. So we don't do wilderness search areas, which means you're out in the middle of nowhere using your map and compass to figure out where you're going, but we might help in a rural area or in a neighborhood. We are not the urban search and rescue team, which are the federal teams. There's 20 of them nationwide. And our closest one is Task Force 3 in Menlo Park, which pulls people from all over the Bay Area to help. So I wanted to make sure that people understand, just because it has urban in the name doesn't mean it's going to be like we've done for Silver Dragon, where we've been out in residential neighborhoods. You might be out more in natural areas. So here are some examples that we've done in the different 3 cities to date. So there was an evidence search looking for a knife near a Caltrain station. We've helped with several missing people searches. Once it was near the Caltrain station again, once it was more in a rural environment, which we'll talk more about off Cunata Road. We've done a lot of information distribution, even last weekend, about the COVID-19 testing site. We've done past activations about mosquitoes because of mosquito-borne disease and trying to prevent that. A lot of you have probably participated in the Silver Dragon exercise. And we've done it in the sun, the heavy rain, fog, flat streets, and on that one unfortunate year, really hilly streets. So the idea is it's not always going to be during the day and good weather. There might be other things you need to prepare for. My last example was canvassing for information after a murder, and neighbors were asked if they had seen anything, and this freed up detectives to focus on the people that actually had information, and that led to a good statement from one of the neighbors. And again, that was completed in a neighborhood setting, but with rolling hills. So who are our local search and rescue resources in the county? So we have the San Mateo County Sheriff Search and Rescue. They have a ground team, which are the ground searchers that go out on foot. They have the mounted team, which are searchers that go out by horseback. There's a dog team, and they use dogs to help find people. And the communications team that uses ham radio and other communication methods in order to keep all of our teams connected. Then there's also the Explorer unit, which are men and women up to 20 years old that want to learn more about law enforcement. There's also the Bay Area Mountain Rescue Team, which is the high angle rescue team for the area. And the California Rescue Dog Association has dogs that are sent from all over the state to help. And so it's important to know there's different types of search dogs that can be used in the search. Trailing dogs are the ones that you see in the movies where you show the dog the article of clothing and they take a good sniff and they're off. And trailing dogs are good if you know where the person started from. And no, we don't need to save that smelly old t-shirt for the dog. And they can usually pick up the trail. We don't usually use a lot of the trailing dogs in searches. Most of our dogs are air scent dogs, and they pick up the air scent in a wide area and follow it to the area of greatest concentration. And so you might be partnered with one of these. There's also dogs that are certified cadaver dogs, and they're trained to detect dead humans. So one interesting story is if you're a cadaver dog trainer, you might have a piece of human bone stored in your freezer, and that's what you use to go train your dog with. And the dog teams are the ones that train the most. They're training almost every day to keep their dogs ready to go. We also have aircraft with forward-looking infrared, and that can be useful to try to find heat signatures that might indicate where a person is. And then there's CERT, and we have very local knowledge of the search area, which, for example, in the ground search last year, we, being from the area, knew more about the ins and outs of it than some of the search members that were coming from other parts of the county. So before a CERT gets called, we're not one of the first resources that gets called, which is a good thing. So what's already happened before we get called? And this is specifically about a missing person. So it would have been investigated. There's probably been multiple searches of where that person was last seen, which is called a point last seen. And then a hasty search where you just send people out in a hurry. You're not doing a detailed search. You're just trying to find people as soon as possible because it's a lot easier to find someone before a long period of time has passed. And then you start notifying hospitals, media, transportations, social media. You've probably seen silver alerts, which are a statewide resource that can alert someone, including seniors with mental disabilities, have been missing and to look out for them. Search area maps have started to be created. Then the infrastructure to actually set up a larger search will have been made, setting up staging areas, call centers, incident command posts. And then, as Sandra mentioned, CERT would be activated per our activation protocol. All right, so you got notified through our activation system that there's a search. So your adrenaline's pumping. What do you need to do next? Well, the first thing is confirm the date and time of the assignment. It's fully possible that the time isn't right now. It might be on the weekend with a notice being sent on Thursday for some of the planned searches, like what happened last year. So once you're aware of when the assignment is, you can go about packing your pack. And this is something you want to be self-sufficient, but you don't want to have your entire kitchen or living room closet in your backpack. So you want to have water and snacks. A lot of times these will be provided, but you want to be self-sufficient in case it's not. Want to have sunscreen if you're going to be out in the sun. We'll talk more about poison oak and tick preparation. Like I said, you're not guaranteed to be on city streets. You might be out in the middle of the area that has poison oak. Want to have a flashlight and headlamp. Not only is that useful at nighttime, but it can also, you can use it to look in darker areas, shady areas, things like that. You want appropriate layered clothing. So a hat, sunglasses, raincoat, jacket, boots. You want to have your CERT vest and hat, an ID card to identify who you are. If you have a radio, either FRS or ham radio, it's always good to bring along. And you want paper and pen or pencil. So one handy hint, because eventually it will rain someday, and you can use normal paper. You don't have to buy the rain, write in the rain paper. You can just put your notebook in a Ziploc bag that's big enough that you can write in it. So that's one trick we found. And you will need to have your ICS 214 form. So this is something that we've been doing, which is really important. And this is how we track our time. So it could be either done at a team level where the scribe is taking notes for the entire team. This is like when you showed up to the command post, when you got your assignment, when you went out on your assignment, when you came back, and any important things you found in the assignment. This is important for tracking of resources for the home team. One thing to note, that nice gas tool that you have, don't need to bring that with you. So you're reporting to the staging area. So on the drive, remember, this is not an emergency. You're not one of the first responders, and even the search and rescue responders aren't supposed to be driving there fast. So you're obeying all the traffic rules when you go there. But along the way, you can look for people matching the description. More than one person has been found with all the people driving into the incident command post, and they see the person on the side of the road. So hopefully you have some idea of the person you're looking for, and you can look for someone that might match that description on your way in. At the staging area, you want to sign in, and usually we'll have a sign in for the overall search and also for CERT. And one of the things is a T-card system that is being used by our local search and rescue team, which is an example up here. It's basically a piece of paper with your name on it and your identification, which in this case would be CERT. And it's basically put into different pockets. As you get assigned on team one, you'd go under the team one pocket. When you come back from the field, you're put back into resources ready to reassign. And it's a good way so we don't lose anyone. And at this point, which happens a lot in CERT and every other activity, it's a hurry up and wait. So you've gotten all signed in, you're ready to go. Now you just want to sit and relax. No need to stress, just sit there. You can pack your backpack if you want, but this is your time to just wait before you get sent out. So at the command post, the next thing will be a general briefing. And I suggest taking a photo with your phone if you have that capability, so you can get all the information and have it with you. Some examples of what's posted is on the pictures there. So usually you get a picture of the person, more information about the person, what they're wearing, which again may not be accurate for what they actually left the house with, footwear description, which is important. If they're wearing athletic shoes versus wearing hiking boots, that would put a different pattern on the ground, versus high heels. Hopefully they didn't go missing wearing high heels. And also any known medical issues. A lot of times you get told, oh, this person can't walk very far. But that's not something that should be making you change your judgment of the person, because a lot of people that can't walk very far actually end up very far away from their point last seen. So it's good to know, but not the end of what you should be thinking about. And then you'll have the overall search area map or description. If you're using a radio, you'll get the frequency and the comms plan that you need to be on. If you're distributing flyers, they'll give that out. And there's also safety considerations, like if there's poison oak or if there's traffic on the streets that you're working on, that will come up in the briefing. And sometimes there's code words that they would like to use on the radio. For example, in the search last year, if the search team were to find a body, they were supposed to say that a red binder had been seen. And the media can be listening to the radio, and it's not like the code words are going to confuse them anymore, but it might give a little more benefit of not saying what you actually found over the radio. So some example assignments that we're likely to get in the future are, you might be going to places that might attract someone, like a mall, store, community center. You might be searching along culverts and ditches and canals, because that's a linear barrier. You might also be in our public parks. All three cities have a lot of open space in them. You could be answering phones at a call center, because once a phone number is published, a lot of people start calling, and that frees up law enforcement, whoever is running the search, to do other things. You could be making calls to hospitals to see if they have someone matching the description, or you could just be a scribe and a runner for the search managers at the incident command post. So if you get partnered with a ground search team, the idea is they have the specialized training and we're adding more bodies so we can send out more search teams. So some of the support activities are providing radio communications, tracking where the team has been, being a scribe for the team notes, and also providing local knowledge because we'll likely be searching in our 3 cities where we have more knowledge than the county team. So if you get partnered with a dog team, you have everything above, but you also want to be very cognizant of your surroundings because dog handlers are focused on their dog and their dog only. So they have a tendency that if you're on their team, you need to be making sure you keep them on point more. And here's our cute little dog in training for the county. So once you get assigned a team, then that team leader is going to present the particular assignment. So this is where you find out, are you doing a line search where you're like shoulder to shoulder looking for evidence? Are you going out and doing an area search where you're kind of wandering around? Are you going door to door and asking questions? And this is where you can answer questions about team spacing, which will be important when you start going out. You'll also get equipment checked out to you. So for example, the county team has radios that they might check out and GPS trackers, which are used to track where the team has been. And also roles will be assigned, such as you might be the safety person for your team, radio person, or in charge of making sure that you get to your search point and search the area and then get back to the command post. So let's talk about some of the particular search terms. So search probability. So the probability that you'll find the person is dependent on 2 things, the probability of area and the probability of detection. So the probability of area, you have no control over. This is the person even in the area that you're searching? And obviously you can't control that. The probability of detection is defined as it's 100% if you know you would have found them and you can control it. So here the where's Waldo picture below. Well, I'm pretty sure Waldo's in there because he's in there on every page in the book, but what's the probability of detection that you'll actually find them? So a good example is if you're searching a parking lot and you're looking for a parked car, I'm pretty sure, 100% sure that I would be able to find a parked car in a parking lot that's not that big. However, if I changed your search topic to be that you're searching for a toothpick in the same parking lot, I might not detect it as high a percentage depending on the resources I had compared to a parked car. Are we doing good on questions, Sandra?
Yep, you're doing great. Keep it up.
All right. So a lot of things affect probability detection, and this is the best thing we can do as CERT members to keep a good attitude for it. So if the person is unconscious versus conscious, so a conscious person might actually be moving around, you might see the movement, they might be talking to you, so they're a lot easier to find than unconscious. Unconscious are going to be laying down on the ground, likely, not talking, not moving, they'll be harder to find. If the time of day, if you're searching during the day and it's sunny and not too smoky, then you might be able to find them better. If you're searching at night, you're not going to be able to see as far. What resources do you have? Are you assigned a dog with a dog team? That gives you an added benefit compared to ground search teams because you're using their nose to help find the subject. There's also terrain. Again, are you searching a parking lot? Probably pretty good odds. If you're searching the bushes here, there's actually a picture of some searchers from CERT on the search last year. I'm not sure how much you're going to see into those bushes. There's also fatigue. Have you been searching all day and you're really tired and don't want to be there anymore? Probably not going to find anyone because you're already biased yourself. Same thing with prejudice and boredom. Once you turn off, you're saying, I got the bad assignment, there's no way the person's going to be here. That's the attitude that you can control and make sure that you have a good attitude so you can have the best chance of finding the person. And also weather. If it's foggy and raining, you have less visibility than you would on a nice sunny day like we had last fall. So one hint is there's only one person out there that you're trying to find, and there are a lot more clues because think about all the footprints that you leave. And if they happen to be shedding clothing or other things they have with them, there's a lot more of those to find than a body. So that's what you're looking for. You are looking for the person, but you're also looking for their clues. And so that's where knowing what type of shoe they were wearing, kind of what body shape they were doing. Once I was searching for a skinny Asian man, but you know, I found this really huge pair of underwear, and I was like, well, and even though I knew he was naked from our search description, this was not a CERT search, this was a search and rescue search, I should be clear. I knew it wasn't his underwear, and probably not a clue that I need to bring back to tell the command post that where I found it. You also want to stop, look, and listen regularly, and you want to look all around you. You want to look up, you want to look behind you, because a lot of times the clues might not be right in front of you. Purposeful wandering, we'll talk about in the next slide. Again, you want to keep the good mental attitude, like we saw in the last slide, and you want to keep the team together from a safety point of view. Mostly won't be in environments that if we lose someone, but as a CERT, we know CERT team, we need to keep our team together within eyesight of each other. So purposeful wandering is a technique to ensure that you find all the good terrain and vegetation, or address what's around you. For example, sitting wherever you're sitting tonight, what obstacles do you see around you that you would need to check behind? So as I'm sitting here in this room, I don't know what's behind the door. I don't know what's behind that piece of furniture behind me. And so I'm not moving around. I'm just moving my head and looking at what I might need to go see. So if you feel like answering the question, you can type your answer in the chat box, see if we get anything interesting. So you're only going to wander to go check behind these objects that you identified during your 360 look around, and then you're going to keep moving. So searching, it becomes searching when you start checking more areas than you're identified during your 360. But the idea is you want to keep moving. You have a certain pace you want to keep, but you want to identify areas that might have more probability of finding something. So here's a good sketch of it. So I see trees and bushes that I probably can't see from where the person is on the slide. So that's where I want to go look behind the tree, and then probably go to the next bush and see what's behind that. Did we get anything exciting in the chat box about ideas on what people need to go search behind?
People are not being invented. Let's go, people. Any ideas? Put them into the chat box. You can do it.
Maybe everyone has their house perfectly clean and there's nothing exciting in it. All right. So another concept that you'll hear is critical separation. So this is line searching and evidence searches. So you don't want to use up too many of your searching resources. So you want to space each other out where you're just at the end of each other's visual range, and that's the most efficient way of doing it. There's no visible overlap between the searchers. So Sandra, do you want to break now before we talk about examples, or keep going?
Let's give everybody like a 2-minute break. All right, everybody? Just everybody stretch, get up, get a glass of water. I know I have not been hydrating. Oops, let me turn on my camera. Hi again. I have not been hydrating as much because I've been wearing the mask. So please, please make sure you're hydrating and taking care of yourselves. Remember, we can't help others if we're not feeling well ourselves. And then I have something to announce. So let's take a 2-minute break, and when we come back, we'll have a quick announcement, and then Cindy will continue with this terrific informational thing. One thing people were asking for, Cindy, just FYI, is maybe a little bit more detail on the Paul Farmer search.
Yes.
And how we got called out for that.
I can do that.
But we will discuss that in 2 minutes. Okay, I'm keeping us honest with the timer. Ready? Go.
All right, so you'll let us know when we're back.
That's correct.
Excellent.
Sandra, you're muted.
Thank you. We're back. Thank you. First announcement. I counted through all the sign-ins. Remember, some people signed in to me privately, so you don't see everybody's, but the number 16, after I counted a few times, is Richard Williamson. So congratulations, Richard. You are the winner of our polo shirt, and I'll make arrangements with you as to how to get that for you. Second item is that there is an activation for CERT, our CERT right now, which just came through from the city of San Mateo. They have decided to put up a pop-up COVID testing site this Saturday in our neighborhood that has not been very well serviced and hasn't gotten a lot of information in terms of testing availability. So it'll be at the King Center this Saturday morning. We do need CERTs who are in the low risk category to participate. So I sent an email activation to a few of you who have indicated from past surveys that you are activation ready. But if you did not receive an email from me and you are available this Saturday and you are in a low risk category, please let me know. Email me since it is a special request from the city and the fire chief has approved it. And it's going to be very strict protocols. A lot of PPE will be provided and a lot of pre-training, by the way. So if we only need about 10 people, so it's not a huge call out. But if you are available and you meet all that criteria, please let me know. This is for, again, a COVID testing site this Saturday morning. All right, back to you, Cindy. Thank you so much.
All right. So one of the questions was the Paul Farmer search. So I think, Sandra, the activation went out by email and text, and that was on a Wednesday or Thursday. Was that what you remember?
Yes, so we activated that Thursday on SMC Alert, and people get that via email as well as on a text on the phone. So that was a Thursday for a Saturday event.
And the pictures you're looking at, they're pulled off a street view, but this was some of the actual search assignments, which is why we're talking about it today. And it was fairly, the city of Belmont wanted to do one last search to make sure that they searched the best probably area of finding him before terminating the search. And I think I saw Pat, you're on tonight, and I assume there haven't been any more developments since last year.
Pat, go ahead and unmute yourself if you can. And no, I don't believe there have been, unfortunately, any updates on the Paul Farmer.
Hi, I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, this is Pat Halloran. I'm a retired captain with the Belmont Police Department. Been retired about 2 months now. But I was there that day. We called out CERT as a force multiplier for the San Mateo County Search and Rescue Team and Bay Area Mountain Rescue that were already being deployed for this. We have not had any further development since this search. It's still an open investigation by the department. They're continuing to follow any leads or tips that they get. But as far as I know, there haven't been any since the day of the search.
Great. Thanks for the update. So as you mentioned, Mountain Rescue was out there. Mountain Rescue was sent, they were climbing up and down hills. They got that type of assignment. CERT was getting the assignment of go search along the sides of the road. So as you visualize what you'd be doing, here's an example. What are you gonna do? There's a fence and bushes. You gotta watch out for traffic. So one of the things about fences is there might be holes in the fence. So if the fence is whole, it's likely the person didn't go up and over the fence. But if there's a hole in the fence, you can see, is there any recent disturbance? Is the ground disturbed? Are there broken branches near it? Is there cobwebs that have been disturbed? That might be an indicator that something went through there. Although you have to really think, was it an animal? There's a lot of mountain lions, including one that I think got run over this weekend that was active in this area. Or was it a person that went through there? So that's one of the things that you can be searching for. You can be purposely wandering outside of the street, obviously, because you want to stay away from traffic and looking for things like that. So here's another example. If you feel so inclined, you can write in the chat window about some ideas of what you search for. This again is on the same side of the road. You have a little more visibility, but maybe you want to go down over here some more. The fence isn't there, so you don't have a good boundary. So hopefully your search team leader has told you how far off the road you want to go. Did anyone type anything in the window, Sandra?
So you're asking for ideas of what to search for in this area?
Yep, if anyone had any ideas on how they would search this area based on what we've been talking about.
Okay. One suggestion is up in the tree.
Yep,
Another is along the path past the oak tree.
yep, that's another good one. You know, people follow, you know,
Someone
Most
else,
people-
please? Go ahead.
Most people don't go through bushes, so there's game trails, and that's usually a good place to start to look for footprints.
Someone suggested staying in the visual range of your team.
Excellent idea.
Someone says use of binoculars.
I like that idea. That's a good thing to carry in your pack, and you can see a lot farther because, you know, whoops, I'd rather be standing here on the road looking with binoculars than walking through all this brush and stickers and burrs and stuff.
It's recommended that we look for the trail. As
Yep.
you mentioned, the wildlife path sometimes. And also look for footprints and disturbed brush.
Yes, because a lot of times, you know, animals can be disturbing it, but also you can see broken off branches, you can see footprints, depending on, in this case, we were pretty far after when the person went missing, but it gives you a better clue that something may have been disturbed. Excellent ideas. Any last ideas?
Someone else recommended, what about colors that are not found in nature?
Yes. So it was funny because not funny, but this person was wearing a red hat when he went missing, a red United hat. And so that was one of the things we were looking for, was a red hat. And I heard a lot of stories. I was doing debriefing on the search about red trash that was being found that was being attracting people's attention.
Cindy, somebody was asking about, are we, calling out names? Are we calling out as we search?
Yes, we will cover that in another slide coming up.
And someone, Sally, who was in our search group last year for Paul Farmer, remembers a drainage pipe under the overpass. So that was one area that was also searched.
Yes, looking but attractive nuisance, right? Maybe someone crawled in there. Great ideas. We'll keep going. Talking about red things that may be attracting your attention. Does anyone want to type in chat what might be a hazard that we should be watching for? Give you hints on the bottom of the screen.
Yes, I think everybody's yelling out poison oak.
Poison oak, and it happens to be bright red about this time of year in some cases, so it was attracting people's attention. We'll talk a little bit more about what to do about poison oak. Some of you may be experts, but some of you may not know what you need to do to prepare for it. And if you get super lucky, you get a flat street where you're just going house to house and it's a sunny, beautiful day, which in this case, the explorers were giving the canvassing of houses and CERT was doing the mostly edges of the road, the search. Trail searches was being done by the Bay Area Mountain Rescue Team in this case. But if you get a trail assignment, you're basically walking along it and you're looking for clues. So again, anything that may have been on the person that you find, if you're talking to people that you encounter on the trail, seeing if they see anything. Again, you're a lot farther along after the person's been missing, but maybe they saw something unusual or smelled something unusual. So then there's door-to-door canvassing. So we'll go a little bit more into detail on this, and this is taught from what we got taught from the Sheriff's Department in Placer County. So it's very labor intensive, but CERT is actually really valuable because if you noticed, our vest doesn't have any law enforcement insignia on it because a lot of people don't want to talk to law enforcement. So when you go in your CERT vest, you're a lot less threatening than someone like an Explorer Scout might be. And it could take as much as 15 minutes per house, depending on the level of detail that the search managers want you to ask when you're going house to house. So if we're looking for a missing person, you're going to request the resident to search inside and outside of their property. You will not go in their backyard. You will not go in their house. And even if they offer you the best chocolate chip cookies in your life, you still aren't going into their house. It's a safety thing. So you want them to look in their outbuildings, their sheds, look in their bushes, look in their cars. Even if they keep them locked, just look in your cars. People end up in the weirdest places. And you could reorient the question to consider what is not out of the ordinary. What did you see that was normal? And that might get them thinking about it in a different frame of mind. And if they're not home, sometimes we'll have flyers that we can put on the door with a description of the person that asked the person to search the yard and home when they get home. So as you approach the door, you want to have an escape plan and route. And you want to listen at the door prior to knocking. You want to knock hard. Don't use the doorbell. And the reasoning is you don't know if that doorbell is working, and you might not hear if the doorbell is working. So it's a lot easier just to knock on the door. And they teach you to stand to the side when you're knocking, because some people may not want you on their property and they might, shoot at you through the door. It's not saying this is going to happen. This is just a safety thing that you can think about when you're out there. You want to state your affiliation clearly. You want to stand far enough away from the door to encourage them to come out and talk to you. Watch where you're putting all your teammates. Hopefully you have a pretty small team so you don't have a bunch of people up crowding the door. Again, don't enter the house if you're invited. And when you're leaving, you want to back away until the person is inside and the door is closed. These are all the safety recommendations. So when you're talking to the person, you want to be polite. Remember, we have all sorts of different cultures that live in our 3 cities. So I want to make sure that you try to use that to your advantage of meeting their cultural expectations. You're going to tell them that you're looking for a lost person and tell them how to contact the search get their information from them if they have good information that needs to be said. So in the Paul Farmer search, there are a couple houses that were saying that they smelled something coming out of the canyon, because these houses were backing up to an open space similar to the open space that caught fire yesterday. And that was something to follow up. We could go send dog teams if enough people said it was coming from the same area. It could just be a dead animal, or it could be a person. And watch their body language. You want to listen, ask if there's anything else they can help with. And again, thank them for their time. Even if they're not nice to you, you still want to you're representing the agency and CERT, so you want to make sure you're polite to them. So what do I need to ask them when I'm there? And what do I need to gather? So you want to gather the addresses that you checked. So similar to the COVID-19 canvassing that we did last weekend, every address that we put a flyer on was written down. You want to write down the name of the person you interviewed, if they're willing, and write down the addresses of the people that weren't home. If someone just doesn't want to talk to you, just apologize for the interruption, write down the address, and then write down the circumstance of why they couldn't be contacted. For example, perhaps they only speak Spanish and you don't have any Spanish speakers on your team. That would be important for people going back to know that was the case. And so we talked about the GIS tracks. This is one of the slides that came from that. All the green were all the search teams searched for looking for him. So did a pretty good job of looking or searching the area. This is 280 and this is 92 coming down here. More safety concerns. You want to be aware of your surroundings, similar to what we've done in Silver Dragon. If the home looks hazardous, you're not going to go put the flyer on the door or go talk to the person. So some obvious things are pets. Although I have this vicious looking dog on the slide, it turns out one of the statistics I heard from the Peninsula Humane Society is most of the dog bites on the peninsula are from little white fluffy dogs. So be aware of all animals on the property. Don't contact homes that look hazardous. You just may have a bad feeling. You can mark it on the map or write down the address and it can be searched later. In terms of being personally prepared, make sure you have the correct footwear. You probably want a different set of shoes if you're walking on a paid residential street. You probably want boots if you're walking along the sides of the roads like we showed in the sample slides. You want to also make sure that you're physically able to complete the search. Maybe you're just exhausted from having too many Zoom meetings and you just can't do it. Make sure you're honest with yourself because you don't want to be a problem for your team and have to have the team come back early. Want to stay hydrated is one of the messages we've been hearing already tonight, and keep the team together.
Cindy.
So then you come back and you debrief with your team leader before the team leader goes for the formal debrief. And then the formal debrief, the team leader, and the team leader likely is the search and rescue member on your team, is going to be asked, what was your probability of determination if the person was unconscious? What is it if the person is conscious? And you also will mention any hazards. So one of the teams came back and I was doing debriefing, like I said, and like, oh, there were all these bodies. And I was like, excuse me? Like, oh, sorry, I meant like deer carcasses. So we think it was the mountain lion that was living up there until it got run over one of those weekend days. That's where it was had its meals. So again, not relevant to the search, but I guess it would be good if anyone else searched that area. Any places for a follow-up? We did have several of the search dogs kept alerting on one area, and so they went back out unofficially later to go see if they could find something. And any clues that you may have found. So this is like any clothing, anything that may be related to the person. And all this information is used to create new assignments as you get more ideas of where the person may be. All right, you've made it back to the command post. So this is where you need to make sure you take care of yourself. You want to make sure that you're hydrated. If it's really cold outside, you want to warm yourself up. If you're too hot, make sure you cool off. And then let's talk about poison oak exposure. So many of you may already be familiar with this, but just want to make sure that people that may not know. So poison oak is an oil called urushiol, and you can develop an allergy for it. I was never allergic to it growing up until I joined the search and rescue team and then became violently allergic to it, which is why I'm very passionate about talking about poison oak. There is a chemical sold by Technu that you can put on your skin ahead of time that provides a barrier. I prefer having long sleeves and gloves and taping my pants to my socks to keep the oil out. It also helps with keeping ticks off of you. And then when you come back, you have to imagine everything that you have on you, if you were going through poison oak, is covered in poison oak. So you want to go back home. You want to take a cool shower, not a hot shower. You want it because a hot shower would open your pores and let more of the urushiol in. So you want to take a shower as cool as you feel like you can take. And that gets the oil off. Anything clothing-wise, you want to put in the laundry. But then, for example, your boots can give you secondary exposure. So say you take your boots off because you don't want to get poison oak on your nice home. And but the door's locked. So you put your boots under your elbow to hold them while you're unlocking the door. Well, you've just gotten poison oak on your elbow. So keep in mind, stuff I've heard can last on your equipment for up to a year. So you can try to wipe it off, but just be cognizant of it. Also, any borrowed equipment, I can only imagine how much poison oak was on those GPS trackers that were being sent out by the team. So just a word of caution. I know I heard stories of people getting poison oak from this search, and mostly it was just from not being cognizant of where the poison oak oil had ended up and touching it. You want to, when you get back, return any borrowed equipment. That's usually the radios and the GPS trackers, so they can be downloaded into the database. You want to turn in your ICS 214 form, and that helps CERT with tracking our time. And make sure you sign out for the CERT and the search, and hopefully your T card, if it's a paper one, gets ripped up when you're no longer going to be assigned. For example, this weekend we went out and canvassed, and we came back and found that someone hadn't signed out from the search. So that person ended up getting a phone call to make sure they were still okay and made it home. So if we can't make sure that you're signed out, you will get another search for you. So make sure you're not that person that needs to be found. So the end of the search. So as you heard Pat say earlier, this person still hasn't been found. So was the search helpful? So it is helpful because you've cleared the area and we know we've looked. The family knows that a lot of effort went into trying to find the person. It's not ideal, but the effort was made. If you happen to find the person and they are deceased, it is still useful because the family will have closure and the person's been found. So I have no theories of what happened to Paul Farmer. In other searches that I've been on, the person was given a ride out of the area by a well-meaning person that didn't know the person was lost. They could have taken public transportation out of the area. In this case, we really don't know. So this is another picture of all the different tracks. So this was Kenyatta Road. This is Crystal Springs Reservoir that those pictures were taken from, that the CERT team that was one of the assignments. Another CERT team was searching the road between the two lakes. Any questions, Sandra, before we jump into this topic?
All right, so I think you answered one of these in terms of how long does it take for the oil to dissipate on poison oak from like your boots or your car seats. I don't know if I remember correctly, if we had recommended people bring a plastic bag or something to put their boots in after the search, but that is a good recommendation, is to have something in which you can put your clothing, your outerwear, and your boots into after doing a search such as that. Cindy, anything else that you wanted to, in terms of how long does it take for the oil to dissipate? You said it could be a year?
Yeah. So
wow.
That's a good point. So I forgot to mention, on my car seat, I put a towel on both the bottom and the top. I don't want to touch my car seat because I will sit there probably in shorts the next day and I don't want to get it from that. And also a bag to put your stuff in is helpful, but there's certain things that you can't really wash, like your boots, which likely, it will eventually wear off, but you should always treat them like they have poison oak on them.
And the other question was, do we need to identify ourselves with our names or show our CERT ID? So when we're in a search and we're identifying ourselves, how do we do that?
I meant like identifying that we're a member of CERT is what I intended, although I don't know if Pat has any guidance on that.
Generally, if you say, hi, I'm with the fire department CERT team and we're looking for a lost person, verbal is normally okay because they see you in your CERT gear. But if you have your ID, sometimes people go, well, could I see some ID, and then just show it to them. Or you could just offer it while you're talking and hold it up.
That's good.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention, not only does TechNew, and this is not an ad for TechNew, have a pre-product, they also have a post-product. This is the brand name, it's TECNU. And actually the San Mateo search team has a large jug of this that they carry on their search trailer and handing it out. So this is a soap that you can use to help clean yourself up. In theory, any soap will work, but I invested in a lot of this if I know I'm going to be out in poison oak.
They did have it available. Remember this particular search, the one a year ago for Paul Farmer, we were teamed up with the county sheriff's search and rescue team, and they did have the TechNew available for anybody who had been out on the search and wanted to use it after they came back. Someone else is asking, Cindy, is soap and water good enough to clean off poison oak?
Yes. Soap and water should be good enough, and like laundry detergent in your laundry that you're running.
But remember, on your skin, make sure you're using cool water. Cool water.
And in the laundry, I always washed my poison oak exposed stuff separately from the other clothes, so I wouldn't like cross-contaminate my clothing.
Question, what do you say if you're asked along the way what you are doing?
So if you're met someone and you can say that you're out looking for a missing person. If it's a media inquiry, someone from the news media, then you want to refer them to whoever you were told in briefing is taking media questions. That's a good one. Any more questions?
Anything post disaster, like maybe after an earthquake, how does that change search and rescue?
After an earthquake, it would be more like what we learned in our search and rescue, or in our main CERT class in the light search and rescue module. This is intended more of like missing people or evidence searches or distributing information.
Okay, I think we're all caught up so far. If you have any other questions, bring them on into the chat box and I'll catch them.
Keep them coming. All right. So a little bit about Alzheimer's. So people can live up to 20 years or more from the onset of symptoms, and nearly 60% will wander away from home. And a lot of times they'll wander 6 to 8 times before getting outside help. And by outside help, I mean usually a family member is trying to take care of the person with Alzheimer's, and they keep getting out of the house and not know it. So there's a high likelihood, and usually they can find them themselves without getting outside support, but it is a frequent problem. And some of the statistics, and these are coming from the Alzheimer's Society in a class I had as a search and rescue member, that 1 in 10 people over 65 have it, and nearly half over 85 have it. So as we live longer, this is a disease of concern. It's also one of only one type of cognitive disorder, but the brain has started to deteriorate and they'll act differently. So there are a lot of symptoms, like might lose the ability to interpret visual images, might lose the ability to interpret languages, which is interesting because they might, if English wasn't the primary language they learned, they might revert to whatever language they had in childhood. And another interesting side effect is that their language might turn to be very sexually explicit, profane, and just inappropriate use of language. They might lose their ability to have coordinated motor skills. They might lose their ability to swallow. They could dress inappropriately. They start wandering, incontinence. They might lose the ability to remember where they've gone and how to get back home. And a lot of times you've heard the term of sundowning, where these symptoms can get worse at night. Sometimes there's violence. And a lot of times these symptoms can worsen when they're outside of their comfort zone. Are they cold, they're hot, dehydrated, hungry. And a lot of times that's what happened this final search where they had to call in outside resources, was something was out of the ordinary and the person and the caretaker couldn't get them back together, and that's when they need help finding the person. So people with Alzheimer's usually take the path of least resistance, which is downhill in a straight line. So a lot of times, like nursing homes put a little maze at the end of their door because people can't get out, and this is on their memory care floor, because they can't turn left, turn right, and then back up to get out of the facility. They also may not recognize a danger that road may be, or we have a lot of canals in our area and blackberry bushes, what kind of risk that might be for them. So at first they might be goal oriented. They have a certain place they're going, and then they tend to be followed more like a random path. They won't usually give out clues that they're lost. They may be evasive because they don't want to get in trouble. When they reach a barrier, like a road or a line of bushes or a fence line, they may just stay there. They probably won't realize they're lost and won't ask for help. And uniforms may go either way. If in their childhood uniforms made them think they were in trouble, they're likely not going to respond well to seeing a uniform, or it may gain their trust if they had a lot of respect for uniforms in their childhood. So here's one of the questions, was calling out. So one of my favorite stories was on a search and rescue. We were calling out, John, because you want to call the subject's name often. And this applies for every search. And you hear back, John. And it turns out we found the person because he called his own name back. And usually in this case, we're sweeping next to the road, as we already talked about, because a lot of the barriers are right next to the road. So again, when you're calling out, you also want to be quiet. Because if the person's still moving around, you could hear things. And so you want to, and when you're standing there, you're not making the noise if you're going through a brush and stuff like that. And usually when they're found, they're not usually hurt, but they might be hypothermic or be too cold or be too hot. And they may also be dehydrated because they've been out there for a while. So here's a statistic that was published by the CERT Association a long time ago. 89% found within a mile. I don't think we've had good luck with that in our county for the people that have been missing that CERT's been part of. 14% are found on a road. 28% are found, again, along those linear barriers, creek, drainage, road, or brush. And the majority will be in their home, but we won't be really finding those people because those would have already been found in all the previous searches for the person. So again, this slide is just in here. First responders are close by, and they're going to be the ones that actually handle the person. So this is more just of interest only because we're searching in an urban area and there's people close by to actually work with the person. They've been missing this long. CERT's probably not going to be the one to go meet them, but you're going to approach this person in a slow, calm method. You want to use a name of respect, like calling them by their last name. Approaching from the front and only one person so you don't overwhelm them. You want to be consistent in the directions and using simple terms. So a lot of us carry a stuffed animal or some other toy, which can be useful with kids, but it can also be useful in this case. It gives the person something to focus on. And you're going to wait for the appropriate personnel to transport, which is not your team. And at this point, they've already been missing so long, you don't need to give them water or food because, for one, you don't know if they can swallow. And a couple extra minutes while you wait for first responders isn't going to make them worse. So I wanted to give a summary of the searches for Alzheimer's that I had in Placer County from the early 2000s. So one case, blackberry bushes, line of blackberry bushes. And another case, someone gave the person a ride. He was at a motel and Burger King because he was getting his burger his way. And then another one again was blackberry bushes, common theme in Auburn. And another one was close to his home. He had walked in circles all day. There was another one, Placer County is famous for the placer mining, where they did hydraulic mining, but there were still some mine shafts. And the cadaver dog did alert where the tracks ended at the entrance to a mine. So my guess is he was in the mine, but we'll never know. And another one got stuck at a fence line and didn't move. So again, my unscientific study here, a lot of the people were found that were still in the area along a linear barrier. So I wanted to mention the Belmont track program. This was started because of the Paul Farmer search. So it's active now, and I don't know of any similar program in the city of San Mateo or Foster City. And it was basically started because the community didn't want to have to go through what it did with Paul Farmer ever again. So the city will provide a GPS unit to people that ask, and it's not like the police department is going to be tracking the person. The tracker would be used by the caretaker of the person with a cognitive memory disorder. And it does need cell service, which there's parts of the area that may not be in cell service. And the battery only lasts for a certain number of days. You also have to assume that you can get the person to wear the tracker, which is a common issue with trying to get someone to wear a tracker. And out-of-zone alerts can be programmed into it to make sure that there's a quick warning if the person gets out of the area that they're supposed to be in. So with that, are there any questions on that little segment?
Okay, let's take a look here. We have, just hang on a second. Steve had pointed out that he took an Alzheimer's course from the Alzheimer's Society, and it was very helpful and informative. Question, if a person with Alzheimer's disappears, should the police or the fire department be called? Does it make a difference?
I'm going to defer to Pat on that one.
I think you're calling 911, yes? Maybe not.
If you're reporting it, you would call 911 or call the police department, because that's where it would start. Because we would have to start a missing persons case. Search and rescue was called out the night that Paul went missing. Unfortunately, with this case and what happens with a lot of other similar cases, we were several hours behind the last time he had been seen. Paul liked to take a walk every day, and he took a walk, and his wife expected him to be back, and he just didn't come back. But we were already 4, I think, or 5 hours behind the last time he had been seen. So we were playing catch up from the minute we got the call. His last reported sighting, believe it or not, he lived down in the area of Belmont, south of City Hall, near the San Carlos border. And the last place we have a confirmed sighting, actually on video, is up on Highway 92 near De Anza in San Mateo, which is why we did the search where we did, because that was in that area. We would have hoped that if somebody had picked him up, like Cindy said, that they would have seen all the news coverage and it would have called us. So, but that never happened.
John points out that, and John also does work with the Sheriff's Department, that says we found a patient from Belmont, the Belmont Memory Center, all the way at the Woodside Road 101 ramp. So people can travel a long way.
Yeah, CERT was involved in that search also, and the person was obviously way out of the area we were searching in Belmont at that time.
Yeah, and coincidentally, it was found by somebody from our department who was on their way home after having worked their shift.
So again, as you're driving, you may see things that you didn't intend to see, but that's why it's good to be aware.
But, and if you think that you can't help out because you couldn't, manage to walk around, you're not that mobile, in that particular search, it was an elderly woman, we had CERT volunteers working a call center as well as out with search and rescue. So basically, we had a job for you no matter what your abilities were. If you didn't want to go out and go door to door or check a neighborhood, but you were able to answer a phone, we have a job for you. So don't think that, in a search, your only job is going to be walking down the side of the road. There are a myriad of things we can have you do.
Definitely.
Let's see, a couple other things. Any extra techniques or recommendations if it's weather conditions, if it's rainy or even snowy?
Well, if it's snowing in Belmont, that would be exciting. So one tip is in cold weather, a pen doesn't write. So you need to be using a pencil on your search notes. And terms of weather, mentioned about you still have to be taking notes. So you can either get the write in the rain paper or write in a bag. And again, just be aware of your limitations, because when it's raining, I'll just go with rain. It's usually you can't see as far. So you're probably a determination that you're briefing with your team leader, it's going to be lower because the conditions aren't as favorable. And be dressed for the weather so you're not getting too cold and not being able to continue with the search.
That's right, dress for the weather. In any case, even when we were out last Saturday, we started in the morning. It was a beautiful day. It was relatively cool in the morning, so people were wearing jackets. And then, of course, by the time they returned at about 11:30, a lot of people had their jackets tied around their waist, and that's great. Just layer and plan accordingly. Sally, do me a favor, unmute your mic because I'm not getting the gist of your question.
I'm asking this question because my father gets violent at times when he has Alzheimer's, and when he wanders off, he gets violent. And I'm just worried. I asked the fire, do we call it fire? Do we call the police? Because I've seen situations where, there's a mental issue going on, and the person that they call the police on ends up injured or dead in a couple of cases. So I was just wondering, that's why I asked the question, call fire or call the police? Because basically if my dad was missing, I'd be afraid to call the police, because he does sometimes get violent when strangers approach him.
I would think, Pat, this is obviously your area as well, but it's important, Sally, and it's an excellent question, by the way, to keep in mind. But I think it's very important that whomever is reporting the missing person when they're making that report, give as much information as possible. So if it is someone who has Alzheimer's or any type of mental issue, if they have an odd response to things such as getting violent, or they like to cuss, or they like to say ice cream all the time, whatever, everybody has a certain something that they may do. And that information is very crucial to the team that is getting that report and the teams that are being sent out. So the more information they have from the family quickly, I think is going to be crucial to how it's handled once the person is found, because it's not a surprise. Somebody else also asked if we as CERT come across the missing person and that person is violent, what is our response as CERT?
In my opinion, as a CERT member, we're just observing. Hopefully we can keep track of where the person is, but we don't need to engage them. We can let the first responders do that.
Remember, we sent everybody out with and we did this last Saturday as well. Every team that went out, and I'm sorry, I have my video off, my apologies. Every team that went out was sent with a ham radio operator, and we had everybody checking in at the end of every block that they completed. For safety, but also so that we could be sure as they were completing each block, we would mark it so we were sure to complete the area that was assigned to us. Well, the same thing happens when you're doing a search and rescue for anyone, and with the GPS trackers that were given. So somebody on the team wore like a pager on them, and they could track precisely where the search happened. So they had those maps that Cindy showed us that really detail what was covered. So then people can then go say, okay, this area was not covered. We can go back and cover that later. So information documentation is crucially important. But the people, if you're going to report somebody missing, any information you can give, including obviously what they were wearing last, is terribly helpful, where they were going or what their habits tend to be and what their behavior tends to be. But as CERT, we are not the ones who are going to go in and pull somebody out, especially in an urban search and rescue situation like Cindy said. We have those resources near us. We want to radio it in, keep a distance. We don't want to startle the person. We don't want to add to the aggravation this poor person has gone through already. But be prepared for the fact that that person may not be happy to see you, and be prepared for that. So the more information we have going into a situation, the better the outcome, because we know what to prepare for. And as Cindy is describing, be prepared for almost anything.
All right, I see a couple
Cindy's
more.
asking, in nighttime searches, everyone is wearing a marker light or
So I'm
some?
guessing, yes, I'm guessing CERT likely will not be called out at nighttime. That would be more of a job for search and rescue team. But in nighttime, you're likely going to have a flashlight or a headlamp on, and that would be one of the ways that you would be lit up at night.
Yes, that's why we use the high vis CERT vests. Anything visibility is very important for your safety as well as for the person who's lost will have a better chance of seeing you as well. Someone asks about the Write in the Rain. Write in the Rain paper, that's a brand, but where do we find it? What is it?
Yeah, for example, for some of you that have the field operation guide, the fog yellow books, that's Write in the Rain paper a lot of times. And if that is a brand name, there's probably another brand. And nowadays, I don't know where you get it, but you can buy notebooks online. I find it expensive, which is why I'm okay using like a 2-gallon Ziploc bag and just taking my notes in that. And I also use my Ziploc bag to keep my ham radio dry in the rain.
Somebody asks, if you find evidence, do you pick it up and show it to the deputy? Hey, I found something.
No, you want to leave the evidence where you have it, where it was, and mark it in your notes. And also people on their GPS trackers could actually put a indicator that something was interesting there, and then during the debrief, the team leader would tell the debriefer at the marker point, whatever, we found this, and they could go back out and find it.
Thank you, Scott. He mentions that REI carries that type of paper. Again, it's a specialized paper that allows you to write on it in humid weather. It's nice and it's handy. You don't have to have it, but it is an extra bonus if you can get it. I think I'm caught up with questions.
Excellent. Well, hopefully that was informative. It's supposed to be just some practical information that you can feel more prepared. And like Pat said, there's a job for everyone in it. And hopefully we don't get any more searches, but it's inevitable that we do, and hopefully we're better prepared to go help.
Absolutely. No, we do get calls, like we are getting requests for different things, and if it's within our scope of training and our ability to do so, we will provide it for the community. You guys have been terrific. I'm just taking a quick look to see if there's any other questions. I want to touch a bit more on documentation, which Cindy did beautifully, and that is the 214 form. Last night, after I came back from the fire, I filled out my 214 for this incident, and that's your diary, if you will. And I went through and I indicated everything I had done from the time that I was activated to the time I came back to the office and essentially signed out. I didn't have a sign in or sign out form, but that 214 indicates everything that I did. One of the other reasons the 214 is important is certainly in a disaster situation, is that proves that things were done and that you as a CERT volunteer gave your time. That is something that we can hand to FEMA to prove that CERT volunteers have given their time in a disaster situation. And that provides funding back into our community for us to recover. So everybody, of course, now is applying to FEMA for recovery funds for their COVID-19. So everything that you have already done counts towards FEMA going, oh, people are really working here and giving of their time. And a volunteer's time is worth, I think, about $27 per hour. But if you don't have it written down, it didn't happen. I don't care if you worked 12 hours and went home exhausted and passed out. If we don't have it in writing and fully, filled out and signed in, it doesn't count. So that's why the 214 is crucial to bring back funds into a community that suffered a disaster and help us to recover. So it provides a great record. If we don't know where something is or where the last person was, that 214 is a great resource, but it's also a great ability for us to recover because it provides funding. So it helps us on many, many levels. So the 214 and all the documentation that we ask for, you're signing in and you're signing out, it's a pain, and I get it, but it's really, really crucial. Like Cindy said, somebody forgot to sign out last weekend, and we had to track them down. And I was ready to jump into the truck and go searching the neighborhood if I had to. because we'll send people out looking for the missing person that was not the original missing person. So let's sign in and sign out whenever you're in any event or activity.
We can download that in the website, the form.
Yes, the 214 is available on the website. So if you, by the way, we have a whole new class going on right now. The CERT core class is being done as a hybrid class. So if you go on the website, www.smcfire.org/CERT, this is the same way that you sign up for on Neon, right? The way you signed up for this class, you can get there that way. But if you go into the new students page, actually there's a button for CERT documents. So CERT documents will have it, but if you go into the new students page, that's the new setup for the classes that we're offering. And there's information there and there's documents there too. So the 214 is a big deal. And something that maybe you may want to consider having in your backpack, because you're going to be filling one out for every activity, every activation, every event that you're participating in. Something else that John, who's got some experience in this, recommends, by the way. So the T card, shaped like a T, which is why it's called a T card, which is used by many agencies, especially with a search and rescue type situation, that tracks where everybody is. You fill out a T card, every individual has one. Please put your cell phone number on that T card, because like we did last Saturday, we were able to call the person on their cell phone and confirm that they were safe. So you put your, you put it on your T card and oh, there's an iPad app for the 214s. Yeah, you can find 214s online as well. Yes. Cindy, a lot of people are thanking you and thanking you for your experience and for sharing it, which we very much appreciate. Okay. So again, if you're available this Saturday and you fall into a low risk category and you're able to help in this important pop-up testing site, we would really appreciate it. If you happen to be bilingual and speak Spanish, that's a plus, but it's not necessary. PPE and signage is going to be very prevalent and provided by the city and the county for this event. It is an event, I think we want you there by 8 in the morning, and I think we should be done by about 1:30. So if you can do so, please email me and let me know. So this is not an activation that I'm going to send out on SMC Alert. If you are not sure about if you're registered for SMC Alert, please double check that. All CERT members should receive SMC alerts on their phone. You also can receive it via email. Check your profile on SMC Alert and be sure that you have CERT trained as one of the options that you can check off. And that is very helpful. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Pat. Thank you all for joining me and Cindy, and this has been really great to see so many of you. We're going to be doing more of these. We're going to be doing at least one a month for CE, or continuing education training. Next one is in October on the 13th, and it will be on disaster psychology. So it follows very well with this one, because not everything is normal. You know, so what is normal and what is not, but also the injuries that are not visible are important to just be aware of, because half the battle is just awareness, right? So we talk about situational awareness a lot in CERT. Mental awareness is too, and we are all going through something right now, so make sure to take good care of yourselves, okay? We're always here. I love hearing from you guys. I get a lot of emails just checking in, and I really appreciate it. I hope that you're receiving my CERT news and that you're feeling that we're at least engaged. Trust me, we are much more active than many other CERT organizations that have been totally silent for the past 6 months. You have been doing incredible work out in the community. And if you're helping yourself, your family, and your neighbors, you are doing the greatest good for the greatest number. So thank you very much for that. Everyone have a great night. I think we're all set. Cindy, you were awesome. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody.